We're now joined via Zoom by Mbekezeli Benjamin, a researcher at Judges Matter. Mbekezeli, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the agenda.
Good morning, and good morning to the viewers at home.
Well, it remains the big story of the day. I mean, the appointment of Justice Raymond Zondo to head the apex court of the country. Your reaction?
Well, as Judges Matter, we were surprised by the decision, but we welcome it. We believed that Justice Zondo had the qualities to be Chief Justice. He's been a judge for 25 years now. He's been acting as Chief Justice for the last year. So he brings all the wealth of experience to the position. So he's a safe pair of hands for Chief Justice.
Well, you seem to be, offering all the glorified words of support for Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. But why were you surprised at his appointment?
Well, we were surprised, firstly, by the fact that someone who only has 2 years remaining on the job would be considered over those who could spend a longer period in the time. Our chief concern really was on some of the issues that the judiciary is currently facing requires a long-term vision and requires someone who would have enough time to execute that vision. So our surprise, it relates to largely the time period he has remaining. But also during the interviews, we saw that there were some candidates who performed a little bit stronger than Justice Zondo did. Justice Maya, for example, was able to cast a clear vision of what she intends to do if appointed as Chief Justice. The same could be said for Justice Mlambo. So on that score, that's where our surprise comes from.
And I suppose so many people share the same sentiments about the possible appointment of Justice Maya, and some opposition parties are saying that Justice Zondo's appointment is a serious assault to the struggles of women in this country, as the general expectation, of course, was the appointment of Justice Maya. And some say it was a missed opportunity for Ramaphosa to prove his mettle and prove his commitment to gender parity at the decision-making structures. Your views on this?
Well, I don't think Justice Zondo's appointment is an assault on the advancement of women in the judiciary. From his own track record, Justice Zondo has made a significant contribution. When he was Judge President of the Labour Court, he was able to bring on a lot more women to be judges in that court, and he was able to capacitate those women. Some of them are now on the Supreme Court of Appeal. And so in that respect, we expect that he would spend the remainder of his time to advance women. And so it's not an assault. But there were very loud voices in society who were calling for a woman Chief Justice to be appointed, and perhaps that's where the disappointment comes from. But as we see from the President's statement, he has nominated Justice Maya as the Deputy Chief Justice. So I imagine the expectation is that she would take over when Justice Zondo retires.
But Mbekezeli, why do you think President Ramaphosa acted against the recommendations of the Judicial Services Commission that recommended Supreme Court of Appeal President Mandisa Maya?
Well, the Constitution gives the President the ultimate decision-making power over the appointment of the Chief Justice. All that he is required to do is to consult the JSC and also consult leaders of political parties in Parliament. So in that respect, he was well within his rights to go against the decision of the JSC. He could have easily have agreed with them, but he decided otherwise. And that is a prerogative that the Constitution gives him.
Does it not make it an exercise in futility, though, that he has to consult with the JSE, yet at the end of the day, the ultimate choice rests with him? And after having taken through all the candidates through a very rigorous interviewing process, does it not make it an exercise in futility?
We don't think it's an exercise in futility at all. In fact, we support this process as it unfolded, because right now we are actually spoiled for choice. We are debating which among the very best candidates could have been Chief Justice. Ultimately, only one candidate could have been appointed, but all of them had the credentials to be Chief Justice. So it was important for us as the public to have a say in the process. And it was also important to hear from the candidates themselves through the interview process. So we don't believe it was an exercise in futility at all. And in fact, we support future appointments to follow the same route.
But then does the JSC have the powers to recommend like who is supposed to be taking over the apex court?
So like I said, the Constitution says that the JSC is consulted. What that consultation looks like is what the JSC decides. And in this regard, they decided to recommend one candidate for Chief Justice. They could have recommended 4, they could have recommended 3. It was entirely up to them. Similarly, the political parties also had an opportunity in this consultation process to recommend one or other candidate. And we understand that there were some political parties who put forward 1 name or 2 names to the president. Ultimately, the Constitution says that the president takes the decision, and this is what we saw happen.
But there are those who believe that not all is lost, though, as Justice Maya deputizing for Justice Zondo will be a potential training ground for her to take over the reins at the apex court at a later stage. Is it a good enough excuse?
Well, I think in terms of continuity, the president did well to sort of decide that Chief Justice Zondo will take over, and then and Justice Maya will be his deputy, because we expect that in 2 years' time, she will ultimately take the position. But I don't think it is helpful for us to see this as a moment for her to be groomed or prepared for the road. As she said herself, she is ready to be Chief Justice, and we think that she gave the most compelling vision for Chief Justice. So she is ready today to take over as Chief Justice. She does not need any mentorship or tutelage of any kind.
Mbekezeli, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
That is Mbekezeli Benjamin, a researcher at Judges Matter, and reacting to the appointment of Chief Justice Raymond Zondo as the leader of the Apex Court.